What I really would rather leaders be able to see is, okay, this person is not performing the job the way they need to. Maybe it's an attitude, or maybe it's a performance issue or skill issue. I owe it to the culture, and I owe it to myself to develop that person. Have conversations. Have those tough conversations where you have to have feedback. A lot of this is in our book, and I'm not telling you to buy the book, but it's a great book, How to Have Tough Conversations. But when you fire fast, it's lazy leadership. It puts you off the hook. You don't have to have coaching conversations. You don't have to find different angles and read that person. You don't have to spend the time to do this if you just believe fire fast. Like when you hire someone, you made that investment. There was a reason why you made them an offer. I think you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the culture, and you owe it to that person to coach them. You owe it to slow things down a little bit and really look inward and say, what did I miss?
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, let's talk about hire slow, fire fast. This phrase, cliche, comes up quite often. A lot of people believe this is the way you run a company. Now, I'm going to take offense to the latter part of that because I think the hiring slow is absolutely spot on, but I think it's really, when you fire fast, it's lazy leadership. And we want to really look at this and see if it fits you. I work with a lot of companies that are in fast growth mode. They're hiring people, and many times they just need people for a role to see if it's going to work out. And most of the time, looking at the numbers and looking at, over a decade of working with these companies, you definitely want to hire slowly. What that really means is take your time. Don't just make an offer to someone. We work with a lot of clients to help them make that a little bit more difficult. One of the key things behind this, I'll give you two of them, in the hiring process is that you want to make sure that people are a culture fit. It's really hard to determine that ahead of time if you don't have good values and you're not using your values to create questions that allow you to assess how aligned they are with your values up front. Now, if you do that well, then you as a team will have a library of questions that you can use. You also want to make sure that you are discussing the values and making sure that people are looking at that as a very strong force. Because if you only look at skills, you're going to bring in people that don't fit the culture, and that is dangerous, toxic, and because it happens quite often. I'm sure many of you have been through this before. But when I am working with clients over and over and over, I see that this hiring slow really does matter. Take your time. Make sure that person is a culture fit. So we agree all together. I agree with the cliche. Hopefully you agree with this cliche, because if you hire fast, it really is dangerous. But if you hire slowly, if you fire fast, I know where it comes from. A lot of people are slow to let go of people because they care about people, they care about their families, they have these emotional attachments to friendships and whatnot. I've been there, and it's dangerous to do this. I wrote a book with my wife on how to have tough conversations, and part of that model requires you to have all the conversations up to the point of exit, and eventually sometimes you have to exit people. And so you don't want there to be, a year or even 6 months from the point of you're like, I'm not sure this person's working out, and you're like not willing to engage in that conversation. So a lot of times this phrase that when you say fire fast, it comes from people waiting too long. But here's the problem. If you take fire fast literally, you bring someone in, you've done all the research, it's a lot of money to hire someone. It might be $6,000 for some positions. It might be $60,000 to hire someone, and that's without fees for headhunters and things like that. And so you want to make sure that you are having a good process and making sure you are assessing whether it's the right fit. But when you say, I'm going to fire fast, that's who we are, you're sending a signal to the culture first, right? If you mess up, you're gone. And what I really would rather leaders be able to see is, okay, this person is not performing the job the way they need to. Maybe it's an attitude, or maybe it's a performance issue or skill issue. I owe it to the culture, and I owe it to myself to develop that person. Have conversations. Have those tough conversations where you have to have feedback. A lot of this is in our book, and I'm not telling you to buy the book, but it's a great book, How to Have Tough Conversations. But when you fire fast, it's lazy leadership. It puts you off the hook. You don't have to have coaching conversations. You don't have to find different angles and read that person. You don't have to spend the time to do this if you just believe fire fast. Like when you hire someone, you made that investment. There was a reason why you made them an offer. I think you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the culture, and you owe it to that person to coach them. You owe it to slow things down a little bit and really look inward and say, what did I miss? Most of the time, it's I didn't set the expectations for this job. And go in there and have real conversations with them, slow things down a little bit, listen to them, and that takes real leadership. Firing someone fast because they didn't perform this month or they made one mistake just doesn't work. Now, there are reasons to fire fast, right? Someone does fraud, someone does sexual harassment, someone does something that's immoral inside the business, or they're toxic, their behavior, their attitude is incomprehensible. Yeah, you can fire fast there. But for the most of the hires that we have and the most of the firings that we have with our people, it requires good leadership. And I'm asking you, instead of firing fast, fire slowly, but put the onus on you to be a better leader. Put the structure around you leading and coaching that person to where you need them to be. And once you've done that 2 or 3 times and they're spaced out over a week or 2 weeks, then you can assess where that person is. And if they still don't fit, if they're not leaning in to the work, if they're not trying to get better, they're not really having a better attitude around the work, they're not listening to your feedback, or they're being very defensive and blaming someone else, then it's probably not going to work. And then you need to move into the exiting or firing of that person. But don't let yourself off the hook by saying, I hire slowly and fire fast, bring in a bunch of people, because that damages your culture. It also makes you a bad leader because you're not taking ownership of developing that person for the role. Obviously, you can go too far. You can hold on for someone too long. You can be too patient. You can be too much of a people pleaser and not willing to make those tough calls. That's also dangerous. So there's a middle ground there with the firing of employees. And I wanted to highlight this because I see people saying that all the time, the hire fast or hire slow, fire fast, because it sounds good and it's a soundbite. And I was watching a couple of videos before I was publishing this video for you, and I just wanted to make sure that you understood my perspective. It's a little different than everyone else's. I believe that you should hire slowly and fire slowly, because when you do that, you really are required to be a better leader, slow things down, connect with that person, coach that person. I'll get into another video later. Most people have very terrible coaching skills. I've been a coach for more than 12 years, helping CEOs and executives and even managers in some cases. And coaching is a skill that can be developed if you take the time to do it, if you really want to be good at it. And most people don't take the time. All that being said, you want to make sure that you're hiring slowly and firing slowly, because when you do that, you reflect on how you can lead that person to a better performance or a better attitude or the right skills. And when you have systems to develop people internally, it really does change the game. If you're constantly flowing over in a role and you're just not finding people, that's on your hiring practices more than it's on the people at large. And you want to make sure that you're not blaming someone else. And that's when you fire fast because you haven't been willing to coach them, it's lazy leadership. My name is Hammett. I'm a CEO coach. We do executive coaching for fast growth companies, and we work with a lot of companies that are really maybe not growing fast, but they want to grow faster than they are now. And we create the systems and structures and support that help them unlock that. Now, if you're curious about the work we do, all you have to do is go to training.coreelevation.com. Our next workshop will be posted there. You can sign up for it if it resonates with you. If you feel like you're the bottleneck of the company and you feel like growth is stagnating, you want to make sure you attend that free workshop, training.coreelevation.com. My name is Hammett. I love to support you if I can. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.